Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland, and in this episode, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm on the quest to find the perfect or best rally racing setup that I can get for my rig. And as you can see, I'm going to be using this awesome SimWorx Pro sequential shifter, and currently my favorite, hand brake, the load cell based Heusinkfeld hand brake. And as you can see, it's not going to be the easiest thing to do to get these guys together. But that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. So let's get to it. Now let's talk about some challenges that we are presented with when trying to get a hand brake mounted in tandem with this shifter. This shifter has a lot going on here, and it's a very big, massive shifter as a whole, as one part putting on your rig. In fact, it's bigger than the former record holder for the biggest shifter I've had here at this SRG, and that's of course the awesome ProSim H-pattern shifter. If I put that next to this, you can see, even if I take this back rod and make it even back here, you can see it's maybe just as long, including the rod, but yeah, the height and the other bits of it are just massive comparatively speaking. So yeah, this is the new winner for the biggest shifter in the world. So what I want to do is mount this to it, obviously, as we discussed before in the intro. And we've got this connector rod and we've got this shifter lever that's actually moving back and forth. So we've got to have some clearance behind this or in front of it before we can mount anything up to make sure that we're not running into anything or bumping into anything. Now, as you can see, I have currently the handbrake in the more horizontal position than the vertical position. And I got a couple of shots here. You can see it in the vertical position, and yeah, if I put it right next to the shifter, it's just no room there. That's not going to happen if it's in front of the lever that we're talking about. So this lever is really what we're having to be on one side or the other. Now, if I put it on the back, you see in this shot, I'm putting it behind the lever, and then it's just way too far away. So now I'm put it down in the horizontal position, and you can see I'm getting closer to where I need to be, like this. And I still have some adjustability. I can actually go down angle a little bit on this part, or the handle part in the configuration it's in now in the horizontal. So I'm thinking I want to do that, but I still have to have it far enough back that clears the lever action, or as far as this lever is moving back and forth. Right. So there's probably 10, 20, 30 different ways to do this. And I'm trying to use what I already have as far as materials in the Sim Racing Garage. And I was thinking that at first I thought I would just get somebody to prefab, weld up an aluminum plate that had some way to mount the plate here, and then have walls on it, the sides, and then a plate across the top, and then just drill holes and mount your brake, right? Simple enough. Of course, we still have to have some kind of a slot in it or some kind of a space cut in it to allow for movement of this. So I was thinking, yeah, by the time I get somebody to fab that up, and yeah, it's just going to be a lot of trouble. If is there any way possible we can do it with materials we have around here, then that's the way I want to do it. And so I started to think about our favorite building material, which is aluminum profile. This is a 10 series, which is 1 inch by 1 inch, or 26 millimeter by 26 or 25 and a half, whatever that is. And yeah, so I put a piece up here. Now remember, the reason I'm thinking this way is because we've got 4 holes here. Obviously the bolts are in it now. They're holding this top down, this steel top. And that means I have 4 places right here that I can bolt this to, right? So if I ran a piece of profile here and then the same thing on the other side, then I would have a platform, let's move this back a little bit, to actually mount my handbrake to. All right, so that was the idea. But if I mount it on the 1 inch, it's going to be a bit too low, I think. And not only that, but yeah, I have to put it further back to clear this. So I also have a 10-20 series, which is basically 2 10s stacked on top of each other as a one piece. And we'll put that up here. And now the height of the brake is more in line with what I think I want to do. You can see how much closer it is. It's going to be a minimal drop from this shifter handle down to the brake handle. And that's what I want for quick access to the brake handle. Right. So I'm kind of settling on this. But what we have to do, just like we always have to do when we're trying to fabricate something to mount whatever we're trying to mount to aluminum profile, or even if you're mounting it to a wood rig, it really doesn't matter. You really need to mock these things up to see how it really looks once you have it sitting on the rig. So what we're going to do next is go ahead and put the SimWorx Pro Shifter back on the rig, and then we're going to put some of these pieces of profile on there and the brake handle and just mock it up a little bit and see what it's going to do as far as clearance, how much clearance I have against the handle, if it's going to be, I'm going to have enough adjustment range in there to get the height I want on the brake handle, just the basic stuff like that. So when we come back, we'll be over at the rig and have this stuff mocked up and see what it looks like. As you can see, we have the handbrake laying on the 1020 profiles that I have here. Now this one's actually clamped down tight. I really can't get a clamp on the back piece here, but that's okay as long as it's sitting there and kind of supporting things. Again, this is just a mock-up to see if this is going to work. And I'm just going to rock this back, and I can see that this is going to work as far as if I want to use this type of mount. I've got enough space from the shifter to be able to bring the shifter back without hitting this handle. And the shifter's high enough to where these handles should be out of my way. And if it's not, I actually still have some room to drop this handle down in this configuration because we got slots in here in this handbrake that we can drop it down still. So if I need to tweak it there, I can. Plus, I can see that this, using this profile, you're not going to be able to see it from this shot, but remember this lever down here, right? And it rocks back and forth. But when it goes back or forward, it kind of rocks in an arc. Okay, it has a radius to that movement. And I can see, just by looking at this, I can get pretty close to this, and because of the radius in it, when it goes back, it actually is not going to contact the inner stop for this brake system assembly in here. See that stop there? We don't want it hitting that. Right. And of course, I got to figure out what I want to do with this wire to keep it out of trouble. But that's okay. The hardest part is going to be the mounting, as you might imagine. And I can also see here, and you kind of have to get up on top of it and look. Let me straighten this one out. Yeah, just like that. You can see here this surface here, this top lip. Each one of these has a lip on it on either side of the channel here. This top lip is right in the middle of the slots for this mount here. And also the same thing over on the other side. So that leads me to believe that I can actually drill some holes in here, tap some threads into them, and then go ahead and mount it directly to these profiles. And that would work out great because it would be, instead of having to mount another plate or something on top of these two profiles to bridge them. And yeah, that would also probably raise this up even higher where I don't want it. So yeah, I think we're on the right track here. And I got lucky because, you know, I thought of a couple of things before I started making this video, and I think this profile is really going to do the job. Now, the only problem is my profiles are way longer than I need them to be. So what we're going to have to do is get the old chop saw out with the non-ferrous metal blade and cut these profiles down so that I get the right length that I want. And once I've done that, then I can put them back on here and start getting my centers on these bolts, right? Because we still have to drill some holes all the way through this profile. And we've got to mark where these bolt holes are going to be very carefully because we want to be perfectly accurate to be able to put our bolts in there. But we'll get to that when we get there. Right now, let's go out and I'm going to show you just cutting a quick piece off on the chop saw. So here we are with my El Cheapo Ryobi chop saw. And yeah, the blade in here almost costs as much as the chop saw did. But anyway, once you have a non-ferrous metal blade in here, a good one, it just cuts through this profile like butter, which really opens the world up to you as far as building things onto your rig. Yeah, this is really the way to go because it's so easy to do. And as you notice, I'm outside doing this because you can see it makes a bit of a mess. Yes, and it profile bits everywhere. So as you can see, we have a nice clean cut here, and yeah, this is the way to go for sure when it comes to cutting profile. So now that we have the profiles cut to the proper length, or at least the length I'm pretty sure I want them at, we'll just set them back up here and take a look at what they are doing. And I'm trying to keep it centered over the holes here. And I'm probably going to have more of it hanging off the back here because obviously we have to accommodate the flange here on the mounting bracket part of this handbrake. So yeah, I might actually sneak this up to the front a little bit. Right, but the main thing is I'm going to have to start drilling holes now. We're going to be using, I have some of these which are nice because I need a longer length here. And these are 2.5 inch cap head socket bolts, or socket cap head bolts, or whatever they want to call them. These are stainless units. These are M6s, and yeah, these are going to work just fantastically for what we need to do here. And obviously, this is a long piece of, a wide rather piece of profile, and we need this bolt to be able to go through there and still have enough hanging out to go through the flange here, or going through this two pieces of metal as they're joined, these two plates. And we're also going to cut a recess, a bigger hole, after we cut our holes. And so this bolt will actually sit underneath these rails, just to make sure I'm not interfering with the flange on that brake over there, right? I want to make sure it has plenty of room to move, and I have plenty of room to mark my holes for that, so this doesn't get in the way of that. So I'm going to show you how I do that. First off, we're going to have to figure out where the centers are on these two holes here on this plate. And I'm going to use my calipers to do that. And it's real simple. Just got to get this out and kind of eyeball it and make sure you're in the center. I'm thinking, let's see, there's the center. You just have to keep eyeballing it a little bit till you get it right. Or at least you feel like it's right. And after you do this a few times, you know when it's right. Yeah, so there it is. And I usually lock that down so it doesn't move. So we have a 120 millimeters there. Okay, that's the centers of those holes. So we're going to go ahead and mark 120 millimeter very carefully. 120 millimeter centers on these pieces of profile. And once we've done that, then all we have to do is go over and start drilling our holes. And you can see here we're drilling the holes for our bolts, and that's what I do here usually when I'm trying to do a precision hole, is drill a pilot hole first, and that's what you see here. This is a very thin or small bit drilling the first hole. And then once we have that done, we can come back, switch out to the larger bit that's going to be the size we need for the bolt to go through, and then we'll go ahead and drill that hole off of the pilot hole. And that just helps the bit stay a little bit centered instead of having to go through the material without the pilot hole to follow. Right, it's just something I like to do. Right, so once we have that done, then we have to come back. Remember we said we have to make room for that cap head on that bolt because we want it to be recessed into the channel of this profile. So now I'm actually enlarging the hole for the bolt to go through. And now the bolt will be able to drop down low into the hole and we won't have any problems with clearance. Now what we're going to do is go back over and go ahead and bolt these up, and you can see here they are bolted up, and now we're doing the mock-up for the brake holes on the flange for the brake. And you can see here it's just a matter of sitting it down there, getting it down tight, and then I'm going to go ahead and mark my holes. Now once those are marked, we're going to go back over to the drill press and we're going to drill the holes that we're going to be using to mount the brake for the handbrake, or rather the flange for the handbrake. And you can see here it's just a matter of drilling the holes, and of course we're going to need to tap some threads. I'm going with 1/4 inch by 20 pitch threads here because I've got a million of those screws, and yeah, they're button head screws and they have a nice big fat button on them, so they're going to work perfectly for this application, I think. So yeah, here we just tap the holes, and then it's just a matter of getting it all bolted back up. And as you can see here, now we have it all bolted in and it's looking great. So now we're in the cockpit and doing the final fitment, if you will, to make sure that everything is easily within reach from my driving position. And this is typically my driving position for doing rally types of cars when I'm racing. And yeah, the shifter is right where I want it to be, and it might look from the camera shots to be a little bit too far forward of the steering wheel, but really from going from the steering wheel to the shifter, as I slide my hand over, it's really no reach. In fact, if I had to come back and grab it over here somewhere, yeah, I would have to bring my arm back to get to it. This is actually a little bit more comfortable to me. All right, so we got clearance between the brake handle, which is the obvious thing that we're going to need. And also, though, you want to make sure that your wrist, the bottom of your wrist here, is not contacting the handle when we're actually doing our shifting. So you got to make sure the handle is low enough so there's no interference with that, and it is. So that's good there. Now when I'm shifting, I don't have to be looking at anything, and I can actually just drop my hand down and I've got the handbrake, and then I'm back up to the shifter. So a nice small movement between handbrake and shifter, and yeah, this is going to work out quite well, I think. I'm really going to like this. Problem though, there is a problem. And no matter how you plan for these things, problems can arise. And it's not a big problem. It's just something that you don't think of sometimes when you're plotting out and you're mocking up things. You have to really be with the final configuration sitting in the cockpit to get those final tweaks done. And here's the problem, is the elbow right here is contacting the stainless steel assembly here of the handbrake, right? So in the heat of battle, that could be very, very damaging to your elbow area, I would imagine. And I didn't notice that until I first got in and started grabbing the brake, and you can actually rest your elbow on that top part of the handbrake and use it as leverage when I pull up on it, right? So yeah, as soon as I did that, I said, oops, that's not going to be very comfortable. So we need to come up with a solution for that. And this is a quick fix. I'm not even sure if I'm going to keep using this or if I come up with something different. But yeah, this is not the most elegant solution, but sometimes you got to use what you have, right? And this is what we had in the SRG. And this is just 1/2-inch pipe foam insulation. And yeah, it's typical hardware stuff. And a lot of guys have this stuff laying around in their garages, or little pieces of it anyway. And this is going to be a big enough piece. If I put this over here and kind of just let it sit there, then when I'm grabbing the brake, yeah, that's cushy. That's much better. Very cushy, and yeah, it's like two different worlds now. And there is a concern of this part of the handbrake, where this eye bolt is, when it's rotating and coming back, and also this washer here sticking out, rubbing against this and causing it to move around. But I think if I put a zip tie on here, actually you can see I already got an indentation where I've tested it before. And yeah, I can run a zip tie through this hole, and there's another hole on the other side of this housing, and then just run it right over the top. And once that's on there and zip tied, it won't move, and then we're good to go. And it's not impeding the movement of the handbrake at all. I mean, it's just light foam. So yeah, light foam is no match against the stainless steel when it's moving. So even if you tear this up, it's easy to replace. So it's something that's going to be economical in the future, I think. Yeah, and you can move it back and forth for adjustment if you need to. But yeah, I'm going to play with that a little bit. I think I had it up here before, and I might move that back a little bit. But regardless, we've actually taken care of the problem, and it was easy enough to fix. So yeah, now we're all set up. So the next thing we're going to do is just do a little driving on the rallycross circuit and iRacing and see how everything comes together. So here we are in iRacing, and we're in the Ford Fiesta. And right off the bat, it felt like home using this shifter and the handbrake. It just came together, all my expectations were exceeded here. It's just such a natural flow for me personally, going from the shifter handle, dropping down to the handbrake, and then be able to come right back up to the shifter handle. And yeah, it's just, I had a couple of guys actually come over and use it while I was going through testing this out, and they really loved it too. They thought it was really, really nice setup, and as you can probably imagine, it is. But yeah, the SimWorx sequential shifter, my favorite sequential shifter, hands down for this kind of thing. Also great, also of course in the Super V8 cars where it was actually intended for. But yeah, it really translates to rally quite well. And yeah, the Heusinkfeld hand brake, I really love the way it has the physical size and presence, even though it can be a problem with smaller cockpits getting it mounted. But yeah, with the cockpit like I have, it just fit right in on top of the shifter perfectly like I had imagined it would. And yeah, I'm really happy with this setup. It's very comfortable. I can go for very long stints and still be comfortable and not hurting my shoulder or something like that because I have to reach around to grab something for the handbrake, or the shifter's not really exactly where I want it to be. Yeah, this is what I'm going to be using this configuration for quite some time now, I think. And this is really an exercise I wanted to show you guys, because just with a couple of tools, the drill press I have is only like 150 bucks. The chop saw was like $79. And yeah, with just a few tools like that, you can really do a lot of things with building stuff yourself for your rig. And I just thought you guys might like to see something like this on how I actually go through the motions and the process of getting something done and mounted, or a mod done. And yeah, this came out really well. And of course, 80/20 profile is not just for T-nuts. You can actually get it out there and cut it and drill it and do other things to it to make it meet whatever you need as far as useful purposes. So yeah, that's about it, I guess. We'll just go ahead and drive this out to the end, and then we'll get on to the final thoughts of I guess I'm going to call this the SimWorx. No, let's call it the Heusinkfeld SimWorx Rally Mod. Yeah, that sounds good. So we'll see you over in the final thoughts. Final thoughts on my Heusinkveld SimWorx Rally mod. I wanted to create this video to demonstrate some of my processes for creating mods for my own sim racing needs. I know a lot of racers like to do their own work when it comes to their sim rigs, so sharing some of mine seemed to be a good fit for this channel. Here, I was able to make two of my favorite pieces of sim racing hardware to create an easily deployable unit when I wanted to switch between driving styles that also meets my own standards for stiffness. Using aluminum profile as my building material made the job go pretty smoothly. I only needed a few tools that a lot of people already have in their own garage. Being able to cleanly cut aluminum profile, drill accurate holes, and use a tap to create threads in those holes really opens you up to new possibilities when it comes to creating your own mods and hardware. I think now that you see the result I was able to get here, you may want to think of using some profile in your next custom project. The SimWorx Sequential Pro Shifter is truly a thing of beauty and function. When combined with the great Heusinkfeld load cell based hand brake, it's a combination that is hard to beat, I think. Although you can get a very satisfying result using other shifters and hand brakes, no doubt. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see more of this type of content in the future videos from the SRG. I'm Barry Rowland. Thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you would like help support what I do here at the SRG, visit my website at simracinggarage.com.